Hello everyone. Today's video is going to be about jaundice because we get a lot of questions about this and it's a common problem in the newborn period. So jaundice is just the name of when the baby's bilirubin level is elevated and it causes a yellowish discoloration of the skin. Now this is only an issue in the very newborn period. Most hospitals now will check a bilirubin level before the baby goes home, and that gives us an idea, the pediatrician in the office seeing the baby for the first office visit, of whether or not we should be concerned. So let me just explain a few things. Most of the time, the bilirubin, when we see it's extra elevated, it's for a few common causes. The biggest thing is something called an ABO incompatibility, or you may hear us say the baby was a setup. And that means that if the mom's blood type is A or B or AB, we're really not worried because her body is not going to make antibodies against A or B. But if the mom's blood type is O and then the baby's is AB, or well, it would have to be A or B, then we would worry that her body had made antibodies against the antigen on the red blood cell of the baby that crossed the placenta and caused an attack on the red blood cells that then caused the red blood cells to burst. They're called hemolysis, or to break down. Well, there's this pigment inside of the red blood cells called bilirubin, and bilirubin is yellow. It's part of what happens if you have a bad bruise. You know how the bruise goes through different color phases, and one of those phases is yellow? Well, that's because all those red blood cells got disrupted from the trauma or the injury. Well, in babies that happens both from the trauma of delivery, but also at increased rates for this ABO incompatibility. Now, this is a whole complicated picture because several things are at play. If this is a first baby, it takes mom's milk a little bit longer to come in. Well, what's that got to do with the red blood cells breaking down and the yellow skin color? Everything, because when the baby drinks more milk, it produces more urine and stool. The more pee and poop it makes, the faster it binds up and gets rid of this yellow bilirubin pigment. So we're often most concerned about elevated levels of bilirubin or jaundice when the baby's dehydrated, when we're waiting for the full mature maternal breast milk to come in. And so often if we're very concerned about jaundice, we're going to recommend that you supplement while we're waiting for the mature breast milk to come in fully so that the baby can continue to make good urine and stool output to get rid of that yellow bilirubin pigment. Especially we're worried if the babies have something called, if they're Coombs positive. So that's when they actually test positive for antibodies against their red blood cells that can predict higher risks of jaundice. Now, if the baby has very high bilirubin levels, even in the hospital, they may already be started on something called phototherapy. So it turns out with a bilirubin blanket or lights, usually we do the blankets now, through the skin we can break down some of that yellow pigment and get that number down a little bit. Now you should know that we use algorithms and a graph that plots out risk factors, and so we look at if the baby's premature, we're more concerned. And what we call a light level, or the level at which they'll need phototherapy, is much lower if they're a premature baby versus a full-term baby with no complications, right? So we're more concerned about preemie babies, we're more concerned about ABO incompatibility babies, and we're more concerned about babies who are a little dehydrated. So you'll notice at the newborn visits that we're very paying attention, very attentive to the baby's weight and the percentage of weight loss from the birth weight. Because you'll remember they all lose weight after delivery. Their discharge weight's always lower than their birth weight. And most of the time in the office when we see them, it's still a little bit lower. Sometimes it's already turned around. Once it turns around and the stool color is changed from that black sticky tarry meconium to the greenish brown, yellow, eventually bright yellow stools, we're so happy because that yellow in the stool is the bilirubin. So that's why we're asking all those questions when you first come in, because it does have an impact on the baby's bilirubin level and their jaundice. So some babies are sent home from the hospital on this bilirubin blanket that you leave wrapped around their body, no clothes, just a diaper, so it actually has contact with their skin and it breaks down that bilirubin. Then if you see us for follow-up in the office, we're going to repeat that bilirubin level, and in many offices we can do it in the office, and if it's still high we have to continue the phototherapy and then eventually stop it as the level comes down. But I do want to offer you reassurance too. Once you're over this period of jaundice and the bilirubin level peaks at day of life 4 to 5, once you're finished with it, it's not like it's a problem you have to worry about for the rest of the baby's life. Once it's done, it's done. Other concerns would be if the mom is Rh negative, so if she's O negative or B negative or whatever it is negative, and then the baby's positive, it's a similar idea. It can be even more damaging and more concerning. But in those cases, when the mom's Rh negative, she's usually already been identified earlier in pregnancy and would have received an intramuscular injection of RhoGAM, and then again at the delivery of the baby if the baby's anything positive. So I hope that helped you understand a little bit about jaundice and didn't make it any more confusing. But if there is a difference in the mom and baby's blood type and mom's O, that's a concern for increased risk of jaundice. It doesn't mean it happens every time. If the mom's milk is delayed in coming in, that's a concern. Or if there's excessive weight loss or lack of stool production, that's a concern. If the baby's only mildly jaundiced, then we're just gonna push intake, lots of milk, and even sunshine, indirect sunshine, to help break it down, that bilirubin pigment in their skin. So I hope that this has been helpful. Thanks.